The president on the podium today saying, hey, yeah, I understand the protesters, but let's not talk about them right now. Let's talk about jobs. What should Mr. Obama be addressing?
Well, Eric, we probably don't have enough time in this program to cover it all, but I can tell you, watching the president's speech, it was a classic, distorted speech filled with distortion, filled with false promises, false choices, and once again blaming everybody but his administration for what's going on. If you look at this Occupy Wall Street movement, Eric, what's happening? They shouldn't be mad at Wall Street. Wall Street creates jobs. It's the president they should be mad at. This president has done everything he can to stunt job growth. Look, he wants to pass a $447 billion bill to create jobs, Eric, and he doesn't want anybody to look at it, just pass the bill. He doesn't have a co-sponsor on either the Senate or the congressional floor. And yet he's already done this once before with $787 billion, and we still have 9% unemployment.
Right. Craig,
he's failing at what he's attempting to do.
Let's
Eric.
talk about these protesters, though. We're seeing them for a couple of weeks now on Wall Street. They moved it to D.C. today. And again, they march on the Chamber of Commerce, among other places, but the Chamber represents small businesses, not big corporate America, right?
Absolutely. It's kind of like my business, Eric. You know, I'm under $250 million a year, so I'm considered a small business. The reality is Mr. Obama in this jobs bill wants to offer me a $2,500 tax credit so he can say, well, I'm giving the Republicans tax breaks. And what do I have to do to get it? I have to spend $50,000 a year to hire somebody. I get a $2,500 tax break, whoopee. And then I have an employee that I got to figure out how I'm going to cover under Obamacare and any other regulation that the White House decides to send down. This protest in Wall Street and now that's gone on to the chamber is misdirected. They should demand the White House put in some standard policies, Eric, that you and I both know would work.
Right, Craig, what do you think when you see these guys, these protesters downtown saying, we want to do everything we can to crush capitalism?
Well, I think there's just a hangover from the 60s, Eric. I mean, think about it. The people that were doing this in the 60s are now filling the jobs on Wall Street, making $500,000 a year. So I find it kind of comical. And more importantly, the Fox reporting on this has been incredible. When you guys interviewed people down there, they can't tell you why they're there. They can't tell you what they want, but they know they want to rage against the system. They want to rage against the man. Do these people that are protesting realize that the largest contributor to the election of Barack Obama was those people on Wall Street that they are protesting against? So I have an idea for Mr. Obama. Why don't you take the $1 billion that you're going to get from raising money for your next re-election campaign and create some jobs with that $1 billion? Why don't you cut some spending? Stop looking to raise taxes, because even John Maynard Keynes said that raising taxes during a time of a fragile economy is a big mistake.
All right, we're going to say thank you to Craig Smith. Appreciate your time, my friend.
Good being with you, Eric.
All right, as these protests mount, the president is still banking on Wall Street types to help bankroll his campaign. About a third of the money raised in this election cycle by his top bundlers reportedly coming from the financial sector. So is there a conflict here? Kate Openshane is with the Young America's Foundation. Kate, we're seeing this. This is going to be a big, big fundraising campaign. At some estimations, Mr. Obama may raise $1 billion. With a third of it coming from the financial sector, should he be distancing himself from these Wall Street protesters?
Well, I think he distanced himself publicly, as he usually does. He says something and then does another. Obama just a couple months ago was calling the Wall Street bankers fat cats, but then he calls them all to the White House and calls those who couldn't come to basically apologize and beg them to forgive him and just ignore what I'm saying. These protesters, if they had any idea, if they would look at the financial records and see who is supporting this president, they would realize he is the man. And perhaps it's his policies that they need to be concerned about instead of this vague Wall Street notion that they're being oppressed.
Right, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the stimulus packages, a lot of the bailouts were, look, there's no doubt under George Bush,
yes,
some of them
exactly.
were started, but a lot of them were followed through under Barack Obama, and in multiples of the Bush numbers under Obama.
Well, completely right. He is, Wall Street has benefited enormously from the Obama administration picking and choosing which corporations should succeed. But those who are really benefiting, obviously, are the unions. This is their last gasp, their last stance. The people who are protesting here are not just your average American. They are paid professional protesters. They are either union workers. I mean, almost everybody who you're seeing interviewed is either a union worker or they're a college graduate who could not find a job.
Right.
The Huffington Post said that 85% of 2011 college grads are back living at home because they couldn't find a job. And instead, they need to be focusing their anger on the job-killing policies of the Obama administration and, frankly, of the unions. It's fascinating to me. You see the signs that say, dismantle Wall Street. Well, what's going to happen to those pension plans that the union workers have been protesting for more and more and more when we dismantle Wall Street?
We just put a full screen up. It showed some of the unions and organizations that were locking arms with Occupy Wall Street. There it is very quickly. AFL-CIO, the SEIU, Communications Workers of America, United Auto Workers, and that bottom one right there. I circled that.
MoveOn.org.
MoveOn.org. If you don't know who MoveOn.org is, by the way, they're both linked to each other's website, MoveOn.org and Occupy Wall Street. This is one of the fundraising arms for the Barack Obama campaign in 2008 and likely will be the same in 2012, right?
Yeah, SEIU was one of his biggest contributors. All of the unions are pouring money into this campaign. They're walking in lockstep, actually, with Wall Street, trying to get Obama elected. So it's just ironic and ignorant, the protest that's going on here. It's based on Obama's rhetoric of envy, class warfare. I mean, the people who are not paid and who are actually out there, they have no idea what they're against. You know, when you hear the interviews, or if you don't like democracy, what do you want?
Right.
I want them to give us their money.
Kate, I found that really striking. There are a bunch of the protesters, the kids who got in front of a camera, and when asked what are they protesting, they say, well, capitalism. Well, what's wrong with capitalism? We want to destroy capitalism. And then the next question, if not capitalism, then what?
They have no idea, and I'd like to know how these kids are able to afford camping out for 2 weeks, either in New York or Washington, D.C.
Okay, 2 weeks? Till we go to the website, they have an agenda through January. I mean, there is a General Assembly agenda through January.
And one of the interviews, I think it might have been y'all's interview yesterday, where they asked this young woman, well, if one of these executives came down and offered you a job today, would you take it? And she said, no way, I wouldn't do it. Well, what are you doing here?
Kate Obenshain, thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks, Eric.
All right, the Tea Party captured the populist movement in 2009. My next guest says these protesters are capturing it now with their anti-rich message. David Callahan is a senior fellow at the liberal think tank Demos. Thank you for joining us. So you think these guys, these protesters downtown, they got it all right?
There's a lot of anger out there. It's been 3 years since the financial crisis. We still have 9% unemployment because of that crisis, caused largely by Wall Street speculation. People are...
Hold on.
People are...
The 9.1% unemployment may go up tomorrow. Is caused by Wall Street speculation?
We had 4.5% unemployment before that crash.
Who was
before
the president? Who was the president then?
Before that, George Bush. Before the...
Thank you.
Who rolled back regulations on Wall Street, allowed Wall Street to turn it into a casino, allowed these bankers to take all these crazy risks and bets, reckless casino-like behavior that caused the crash.
When do you think that this
casino-like
behavior,
hasn't been remedied?
When the bubble burst, who created the bubble?
Well, Wall Street helped create that bubble by securitizing
Specifically,
mortgages.
who created the bubble? Thank you. Okay, let's go.
By securitizing mortgages.
Which mortgages?
By bundling bundling subprime mortgages together.
Where did the subprime mortgages come from?
Peddling it to...
Say it.
Countrywide, which peddled this stuff.
And who told them to put out these mortgages? There was a Community Reinvestment Act, and during that time, it was Chuck Schumer, it was Chris Dodd, it was Barney Frank who said, I don't care. Let's roll the dice. Let's make sure everyone that wants a home gets a home. That was the basis for the mortgage. And then they were bundled and they were bet on, granted. But really the basis for this whole bet came under a Democrat Congress.
Yeah, but don't forget how we got the financial crash, which is Wall Street made all these risky bets, highly leveraged on those assets, and when the house of cards fell apart, the economy collapsed. We're living with that legacy today. 3 years later, still 9% unemployment.
It's still Bush's fault.
And guess what?
Because it's 3 years down the road. Mr. Obama has been on the podium several times. In fact, this week he said, okay, the economy is mine. But you're still pointing the finger, and these protesters are still saying, look, it's greedy corporations and Republicans.
Well, the protesters are saying, basically, this economy is not working for ordinary Americans, and it's not. You have record corporate profits. You have the top 400 Americans with more net worth than the bottom 50% Americans. You have 46 million people living in poverty. What kind of economy is working if you have record corporate profits when 46 million people are living in poverty? That's an economy that's not working.
Why are you blaming profit? You're blaming profit for the ills of the economy.
I'm not blaming profit, Eric. I'm just saying that when you have record corporate profits, when you have record amounts of wealth in the hands of the rich, and you have 15% of people living in poverty, 25%,
let me ask you this. So what's the answer?
25.
What's the answer?
The answer is a mixed economy. Capitalism is a great system, but it needs to be...
Mixed with what?
It needs
Capitalism
to be,
mixed with socialism?
Excuse me.
Marxism?
No, what we've
communism?
What we've had for the last 50 years, which is capitalism mixed with proper regulation. Those regulations
does proper regulation mean telling the banks how much profit is okay and anything above a certain amount is not?
No, but what it does mean is the banks cannot make these crazy over-leveraged bets. Too much leverage, too much risk based upon these assets that were a bunch of junk, toxic assets. That's what caused the financial crisis. And you know what? The system hasn't been fixed. Banks and Wall Street have spent $750 million in just the past 3 years
Mr. Obama
trying to stop that.
The president
Wall Street
today
reform.
showed his hand. He was on that podium. He was making this job speech, and at one point a reporter asked the right question. Mr. Obama, a while back, a couple days ago, you said banks shouldn't make more profit than they deserve. What did you mean by that? He clarified what he meant. He said the free market should price what the banks do. He was right about that. But then he took it one step further and he said, and if it gets out of control or out of hand or at a certain point, policy should step in. Well, no. No, policy shouldn't step in. The free market should step in. If a bank charges too much for services, people will go to another bank.
Well, the free market didn't work so well in the lead up to that financial crash. Look,
how can you say that? The free market has put America on top of every standard of living, every household net worth, everything across the board. It's working.
Well, right. A mixed economy has worked over the past 50 years, but what we've seen is those safeguards and regulations rolled back, which has let Wall Street turn into a casino, and the system has still not been fixed.
We're going to leave it there. David Callahan.